migrants should integrate to the country. The multiculturalism policy was established towards the end of the 1960s, early 70s. It kind of feels like a social policy, but it's not. It wasn't a social policy at the beginning. It was an economic policy. The biggest driver of multiculturalism policy was the need for Australia to have laborers, workers from other countries other than the traditional British, Irish, or other white nations that Australia drew its migration from. That was no longer tenable at the end of World War II. These countries themselves needed migration, so they could no longer supply the labor force that the growth that Australia needed. My parents described those times, when they didn't like certain job conditions in a factory, they would walk out of that, walk out of that factory and go to the next factory and get a job the same afternoon. Like the labor was so abundant in those times. Multicultural policy was great. It was a great initiative, influenced by United States civil rights movements as well, what was happening around the world. The world was changing and Australia needed to change. And the policy lasted for a long time, 50 years now. It's very successful. What we don't want is that we don't want to go backwards in our social policies and what makes Australia great. But people are getting nervous around multiculturalism because at the time when multiculturalism was introduced, Australians were very clear about their identity. It was a kind of a monocultural society. There was only 10,000 Muslims in this country. It was even less than at that time. So the population was largely a Christian, white Anglo population. But that's no longer the case, or it's reduced dramatically compared to those times. Still, of course, the most prominent identity of Australia is, we say it's a Christian country and a white Anglo country. But in some suburbs, you don't even see anyone from an Anglo kind of a background. I mean, that's not something so that creates a kind of nervousness around what Australia means. Is it slipping away from hands of some privileged elite? So we can understand the feeling, but it doesn't mean we can go backwards. What we need to do is that we need to think about how we can develop multicultural policy into a social policy rather than an economic one. And we really don't have a social policy for Australia, as in what makes us glue together. We talk about Australian values. Who remembers them? I really think we need to, we still lead the Australian values, but maybe three. If we can agree on three core values that we can all agree on, then say, yeah, I can put my signature on those three values. If everyone does that, then it's great. That's something that unites us together in terms of what kind of a vision we have for this society. But we don't have that consensus. And you can't have that consensus without debating, without intellectually talking about it. I really think there has to be an investment in Australia by universities, by governments and other think tank groups to really think hard, including the churches, because I guess churches are very important institutions, or other secular groups, because at the moment, no religion category is the biggest category in Australia. We will have census next week, and I predict that no religion category will be around 50% of the population. Muslim population will come out 1,100,000. Mark my words. And so this is very significant. It's a very significant development for Muslims to have more than 1 million in this country. And there are 37 countries around the world whose population is less than 1 million. So that means Muslims as a subgroup within Australian population are larger in numbers than some countries have populations. I think that should make Muslims, I'm a Muslim, us Muslims let's say, in this respect, to think really hard as to what it means to be an Australian Muslim. And this is where the issue of integration comes in. We can't have a population that just doesn't feel they fit into this country. We have to find a way for them to feel they belong. Even though there is Islamophobia, even though there are people out there like Pauline Hanson who gives messages to Muslims that they don't belong to this country. We need to assert our place in this country with the responsibility, feel a responsibility that we need to make this country better as Muslims. Because this country has given us a lot. You know, it's giving me a lot. I don't know if I could be a professor if I stayed in Turkey. You know, at the time I was working in a restaurant as a kitchen hand, and they put me to wash the dishes. I'm washing the dishes, and you know, I'm thinking about my future as a 15-year-old. I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life? We don't have money for me to get special education to go into universities. I was really good at school, like I was the dux of the school. And but I had no opportunity. No one could give me a direction. And honestly, I thought to myself, I'm gonna run away from home, work in a restaurant, sleep on a mattress, single mattress in a restaurant, and study. That's the kind of direction I had for myself. Fortunately, I didn't have to do that. And I guess the restaurant skills that I learned in that works for me really well. I chop really good onions, and I'm really good at kitchen, you know. Alhamdulillah, thankfully. So that was really great opportunity. But I'm now a professor and speaking in front of you right now. And I'm able to lead projects and really have positive chance to have positive influence on society. So this is what this country has given to me, and I feel like I should have the responsibility to improve this country, make contributions, whether that's economic, social, or otherwise. So in that respect, I think Muslims, we need to think about and discuss and talk about a level of our integration in this country. And integration happens, when I say integration, I mean, we all are over the assimilation aspect. Nobody wants to assimilate. What are you going to assimilate to? Even that's not clear, right? So assimilation is out of the question. So we've done some research where I asked the Muslims this question: what would you prefer? Integrate fully, which kind of means assimilation. Do not integrate at all, or integrate but maintain your identity. 95% said integrate but maintain your identity. So this is what Muslims want. And this is what we need to facilitate as community leaders, mosque leaders, and school leaders. Like whoever is in a position of influence over the Muslim community, this is what we need to do. And integration happens at 3 scales, 3 levels. It's economic integration, social integration, and identity integration. Economically, Muslims have integrated well. I guess the economic, socio-economic level are pretty good now. Like the business owners, they even create jobs, they have good income, good education. Socially, we've been interacting really well for the last 20 years because of events like this. And we are right now created a space where that social integration will take place between everyone that's here. Whether if you're a Muslim from different ethnic backgrounds, you can interact, or if you're not Muslim and non-Muslim, you can interact today, hopefully, while eating the Nas pudding. It's so I think that's been completed to some degree, but the identity integration part, we have a bit of a work to go as Muslims. Actually, one of my PhD students is currently researching that. We built a theoretical model, and we've been researching, having focus group meetings, online surveys with young people to measure how much how do they feel as an Australian Muslim. And we're measuring feelings here. The identity is about a feeling. It's not about thoughts. It's who you feel inside. So, and then we're going to measure that, how Muslims feel connection to the people of this country, the land of Australia, and the history of Australia. And we are finding really some interesting results, which we will produce recommendations to Muslim schools, Muslim organizations, and also the government as well, when that's finished. So basically, we have, thankfully we come that far. Like 20, 30 years ago, we were talking about social interactions, social integration. That wasn't happening at all. We were in a social silos in our own camps. There was no interaction whatsoever. So we really came a long way in that. So in that spirit, like one of the contributions that our organization, the organization that I run, ISRA, Islamic Sciences and Research Academy, we wanted to bring Islamic studies or study of Islamic higher learning in Australia permanently, in an institution, in a university. We work with Sturt University and have been running Islamic Studies courses, Bachelor of Islamic Studies, Master of Islamic Studies for 15 years. And we had 3,155 enrollments in those times. It's a massive number. And rest of the community have really arisen. They try to emulate that, the higher education in Australia, in mosques and other places. So the level of Islamic education in Australia has risen significantly. But what's regressed to some degree is these dialogue opportunities. And that's something that I really thought with my colleagues, we really need permanent platforms and spaces where that interaction can take place, multicultural and interfaith interaction. And that's why we're building the Museum of Islamic Arts. Because that institution will be there permanently. It can be visited every day by Australians, by Muslims. Muslims can be proud of their heritage, civilization, and like bringing that to Australia means a lot for Muslims, having that presence. And that, obviously, we're not going backwards in history, we're just bringing that to demonstrate the beauty of Islamic art, and through that, Islamic, the souls of the Muslim people. And hopefully then other non-Muslims could also appreciate that wonderful works of art. That's the vision that we've got, that place becomes a focal point for continuous interaction. That's what we need. And that was what was lacking, unfortunately. Well, I guess everything developed over time and we came to this point, and that project is happening. And with your support, even from Adelaide, although it's in Sydney, it's an Australian museum, so we expect the support of everyone, all Australians, and that it will be we can even establish links with other museums around the world. So I want to once again thank the organizers for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you today. We have, our country is really good. But when there are signs that some things are going negatively, in the negative direction, it doesn't mean Australia is a bad country, it's become a bad place. It's like if you're in a nuclear reactor and the needle is going a little bit this way, you don't say, let's leave it until it becomes a catastrophe. You have to do something straight away to put it in the normal direction. So in that similar tone, that whenever we feel that the needle is going towards a negative little bit, we must act immediately so that it doesn't become a crisis. When it becomes a crisis, it'll be more costly and more difficult to address. And that's like, if I'm a little bit critical of where we are today, that's where I'm coming from. That I really believe that Australia, despite everything, It's one of the best countries to live in this world. I wouldn't migrate anywhere else. I wouldn't move anywhere else. And I'm sure the rest of you all enjoy being part of this country as well. So thank you very much. I can't